that this meeting is now ready to be live streamed. I'll await confirmation before starting the meeting. I just check, Neil, you're okay? You can hear us? Thank you. I've now had confirmation that we are live streamed, and I'll begin the meeting this evening. The first remote cabinet meeting of Nuneaton and Bedworth, I think in its history, it's fair to say. Before I formally begin the meeting, I do want to mark the sad passing of 3 previous councillors. Bill Olner, who sadly passed away in recent days, an ex-MP of Nuneaton, leader of the Borough Council, and indeed former mayor of our borough. Former councillor Des O'Brien, who served as a Borkington member for a number of years, and councillor Michael McMahon, previous councillor Michael McMahon, who represented Camp Hill for a number of years. I wonder if we could mark that with a minute's silence, please. Thank you. Thank you. I think it's always important that we do pay our due respects to people who've served the public of Nuneaton and Bedworth for many years. And that comes on then to, this is both a virtual and a live streamed meeting. Members of the public can make representation to the meeting in writing, and councillors can indeed address the meeting as they would like to. There is a facility to raise your hand when you're wishing to speak, and I ask that you do that, and I will be monitoring the chat function. Can I ask councillors to turn off their mobile phones in case they are heard on the stream this evening, set them to silent or turn them off? And can I also ask that we remain muted in order to improve the sound quality during the meeting until I call you to speak? I hope that is clear with everybody. The next item then is apologies for absence. We have all of the cabinet here, and therefore there are none. Are there any declarations of interest from any member that aren't already on the agenda? No, so they're all declared. Then come on to the minutes of the previous meeting. It was quite a long time ago, back in March. Is anyone prepared to move that they are a true record? Councillor Phillips, are you going to move those? Can I ask that you unmute Councillor Phillips? Councillor Phillips, you're muted. Can you unmute?
Is that better?
That's much better. Councillor Phillips, are you moving those as a true record?
I am indeed, eventually. Yes, thank you.
No, thank you very much. And do we have a seconder for those? Is there a seconder? Councillor Shepherd, can you unmute and tell us if you're seconding or otherwise?
I'm very happy to second the minutes.
Okay. And can I have a show of hands? Everybody happy with the minutes? A show of physical hands will do. Thank you very much. The minutes are then approved. moves us on to public consultation. I've been advised that Councillor Kondaka would like to speak on items 6 and 8 and Councillor Damon Brown on item 10A. If there are any other items people want to speak on, can they indicate on the chat function, please, now? Otherwise, I'll take it that that is the items people are speaking on. OK, I'll conclude that that is it. I'm going to take them in the order they're in because we have speakers on nearly every item. The first item then is item 6, the COVID response and impact report. This report summarises the council's response to the COVID-19 emergency and the impact that this has had on both the delivery of council services and its financial position. Section 4 sets out the changes that the council has made to its services during the pandemic and the new services that it has been delivering, such as the Shielding Hub, to assist those most in need. The financial impact that COVID-19 has had and will continue to have on our finances is shown at section 5. The table at 5.6 shows a summary of costs and income reductions to date and a forecast for the remainder of the 2021 financial year. And this does vary between 2.75 million and 3.5 million, depending on the length of lockdown and the speed of recovery. While government funding of 1.3 million has been received so far, the council continues to press for further funding to mitigate the impact on its budgets. A more comprehensive report on the council's budget position for 2021 will be reported to Cabinet in July. And finally, section 6 looks at the recovery phase that this council is now moving to, focusing on organisational, economic, community and health and climate change. The recommendations are at section 2 of the report. Can I invite Councillor Kondaka to unmute and make his representation, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you, Councillor Kondaka.
Good. Firstly, I must start by giving my own comments about the 3 councillors or ex-councillors we've lost. Obviously, I knew Bill Olner quite well over recent years, and it's really sad to lose 3 of the ex-councillors. I know they're all dedicated to the local community. I think this pandemic has really shown how the council stepped up. There's been an awful lot of good work done. People are quite often negative about the council, but so much of what has happened has actually shown that the better side of the council, and it has done incredible jobs, particularly on litter picking, getting stuff going, and particularly the waste collection. So if you could pass on good about that. There's obviously a few things that haven't gone well and a few things I just want to raise. One was how slowly we were to close down the leisure centres, and I hope when we do the reverse and start opening things up, we are particularly careful, considering we are a fairly highly infected area. And secondly, we've got lots of financial information in here. I'm particularly worried about the future of the Civic Hall, and I think we do need to discuss at some point where we go with it, considering the challenges it will face. And also we got the capital investments, particularly the property scheme, which is probably lost almost £1 million as a capital loss, which is not reflected in the paperwork. And we also need to see where we are with NABCEL. So with those just few comments, I do want to say how well the council has performed, considering the absolute chaos the country's been put into.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any points of clarification from Cabinet members? I take it that there are none then. It is then over to Cabinet. Before I bring Cabinet in, can I ask Simone, is there anything you wanted to add to the report at this stage?
No, Chair, nothing to add. The report does have a fair amount of detail in anyway, but obviously happy to answer any questions.
Yeah. Any member? Councillor Phillips, are you wanting to come in? Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes, yeah. Well, all I can say is I can endorse Councillor Condicor's comments about how well this council has performed. I don't know about his concerns regarding the leisure centre because it was shut down on the 20th of March. Future of the Civic Hall is always debatable, and I'm not too sure about the capital investment scheme at the present moment in time. But I just would like, I think, and other councillors, no matter what flags they wear or colours they wear, would agree that our staff have been absolutely fantastic. Those working from home, those out on the streets, health and safety, etc., public protection. And I'd also like to thank the residents of the borough for upholding what the government has asked us to do, Chair.
Thank you very much, Neil. I'm sure you'll appreciate. I will echo those points. I have Councillor Lloyd, followed by Councillor Watkins. Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, there is issues around the Civic Hall. Obviously, we are looking into those issues on social distancing when we open up the Civic Hall, how we're going to cater for the well, less audience sitting on seats, because there's going to be a cost to that as well. With the reference to the leisure centres, at the end of the day, it was not down to this council to close down the leisure centres. That was down to the leisure operator. And as far as I'm concerned, they closed down as soon as it was feasibly possible for them. And again, it'll be up to the leisure contractor when they open up again. You know, at the end of the day, they're the contractor, they're running the contract within that centre. So as I say, social distancing in all these establishments, whether it be the museum, whether it be the Civic Hall or the wet centres, sports centres across the borough, are going to be an issue and something that we are looking at this moment in time in anticipation at some stage those facilities opening up. The other thing, I mean, I want to personally thank all the staff that have been involved across the council, because they have come up to the mark. Members have been transferred from where their comfort zone is to other areas, and they've come up trumps. So I'd like to put on record my thanks as the Cabinet Member for Leisure and Arts and Recreation. My thanks for all the efforts that our staff have done, because they have come up trumps and it is shown across the area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I bring in Councillor Watkins, please? Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, hello, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay. Yeah, thanks. I would just like to put on record my personal thanks to the whole of the council staff. We've done exceptionally well, in my opinion, throughout these difficult times, something that has never been seen by our generation anyway. And a special thank you to the housing and communities team, obviously, because it's my portfolio, but they, in my opinion, they did do a fantastic job and continue to do a fantastic job in these pressing times. So I just want my personal thanks to go on record for the whole of the council. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watkins. I think you're making points that I can only but echo. I think an awful lot of work has been done by a great many people across the council, and it is greatly appreciated. Many of our workers are key workers And when we go out and clap on Thursday nights for the NHS, I know we're including our key workers in that too. Councillor Shepherd, I've just noticed your hand is raised. Can I invite you to talk?
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I also want to echo my thanks to the staff of the Board of Council who've worked so hard, and it would be remiss of me not to mention my refuse and cleansing workers who've been out emptying the bins of the residents and worked extremely hard, and the IT team have actually allowed us to perform in this tonight in terms of the cabinet meetings and planning last night. So my own personal thanks, along with every other cabinet member.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Can I ask Mr. Davis, do you need to add anything at this stage?
No, thank you, Chair. Nothing to add.
Thank you. I'm sure there are several directors on this call this evening, on this conference call, our new way of working, and I'm sure they will pass on the sincere appreciation of Cabinet for a lot of hard work right across the board that is going on. It is much appreciated. I know the technology has been not easy to resolve. I'm sure our IT colleagues would agree, but we have certainly seemed to have done better and hopefully enabled nearly everyone, I think, to become enabled to take part in video conferencing. I've got Councillor Phillips wanting to come back in. Councillor Phillips.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Whilst we're quite rightly supporting what our staff have been doing, the report, we still have, it must be pointed out that we still have a very high financial impact. And at 5.2, it says, whilst the government has stated it intends to fully compensate councils for the impact of COVID-19, it is currently unclear whether this is just in relation to costs incurred or whether it would cover loss of income also. Now, we're looking at the present moment in time, unless we get more help through our MP and the government, you know, we're looking at £1.5 million cost to this council. And I know that our officers and the district and local councillors are lobbying quite hard, but I think the public ought to know that our loss of income to provide services is a really scary situation going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. I think the financial situation will evolve, and you're quite right, without additional funding from central government, councils, I think it is fair to say, up and down the country will have some very difficult decisions to make. But I am conscious that ministers have said that council should do what it takes to get the immediate support in place, and I hope that funding will follow those statements. The report then is for noting, and it is noted with great thanks, I think, for the efforts of everybody involved in this. I am then, is that noted by everybody? No further comments? I'm taking that that's consensual. Thank you. We're then moving to item 7, payroll provision. Can I ask Councillor Shepherd to introduce this, please? Thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Chair. Our current payroll provider, Coventry City Council, gave notice in January 2020 and agreed a one-year extension to current arrangement to March 2021. There is inevitably a need to source alternative payroll provision to ensure the council continues to be able to properly administer payments to employees, members and NABCEL. Various options for procurement have been considered and tender documents have been drafted. An assessment of the market indicates that the council can expect to exceed the current annual value of 20,000, with the potential of it being upward of 40,000 per annum. The estimated increase has been noted as a budget pressure for 21-22. In order to allow sufficient time for contract mobilisation, a procurement exercise needs to begin in early June 2020, with a target contract award date of no later than November 2020. A tendering exercise should afford the council more opportunity to negotiate on pricing. Therefore, approval is sought to carry out an official journal of the European Union compliance procurement process in accordance with the Council's contract procedural rules, inviting suppliers to bid for the contract with evaluation against criteria and comparison to current costs undertaken by the Director for Customer Services and Business Improvement. I'm happy to move the recommendations.
Okay, I take that, Chair, Councillor Shepherd, that you are the formal mover of that motion to agree. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Phillips, you're wanting to speak?
Yes, I'll quite happily second that. This is a very important function of any council. It's disappointing that Coventry will not continue to do it, and so we have no option but to go out to procurement to find the best deal that this council can attain, and as usual we will do.
Thank you. So Councillor Shepherd's formally moved that. Councillor Phillips has seconded. Before I move to the vote, is there anything, Christine, you want to add?
No, thank you, Chair.
I'm not seeing anyone else indicating that they wish to speak. I'm then going to move to the vote. Can you please indicate that you are happy by raising a hand? That is unanimously agreed. Thank you. Everyone's hands in Cabinet was raised. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. We are then moving to item 8 of this evening's agenda, the quarterly strategic performance report. This report sets out the summary of the Council's performance during 2019-2020. The positive aspects and those requiring improvements are shown at Appendix A on page 45. The year-end financial information is still being prepared, and so no update has been included in this report. The outturn position for 2021 for the General Fund will also be impacted by the current COVID-19 pandemic. A comprehensive outturn report for the General Fund, HRA and capital programmes will be reported to Cabinet in June, and the recommendations are shown at section 2 of the report, which is basically that Cabinet review the strategic performance report to address issues arising and potential improvement actions. I believe we have a speaker on this. Can I invite Councillor Kondaka to unmute and address Cabinet?
Thank you very much, Chair. The first thing I've seen, Appendix B, is we haven't had an economic development post holder since December. Yeah, 6 months without having someone driving forward our regeneration and our discount schemes and all sorts of things is really bad news. I don't know why we didn't know about this earlier. Also in that appendix, there's things like the Air Quality Action Plan, which yet again hasn't been moved forward for yet another year, and I do hope now we've got the new directors in post from the 1st of June we can actually start talking about having an air quality action plan, because it keeps getting put off and put off and put off, and poor air quality is a real big problem, particularly in places like Abbey Green, parts of Bedworth, places like the Old Hinkley Road. So we really need some action on that. I understand we're in a pandemic, but the sort of work we can do, to which we've been working and striving for very hard to get action at the county level, but we do need the borough as a planning authority to get this air quality action plan in place. And also I noticed the risk register hasn't been updated since January. The risk register, it's absolutely crazy to have such an outdated risk register. I understand why it wasn't updated right in the middle of the crisis, but in February and in March, we should have actually been looking at what the risks coming forward were and actually starting to update that risk register. So it's very disappointing. And the whole of the action plan in Appendix B obviously needs a review given the pandemic. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kondakor. Are there any points of clarification from Cabinet? Can I thank you for your input into the meeting, Councillor Kondaka? In regard to items mentioned, Simone, do you need to add anything to the report?
Nothing specific to the report itself. Just to pick up on though the economic development post, we have been out to advert for that post twice now, and haven't been successful. We haven't been able to shortlist any candidates, and we have also attempted to get an interim in, because we do appreciate the value that role would bring, especially at the current time. But again, we've been unsuccessful in trying to get an interim in post, but we are still continuing to try and get some resource in that team.
Thank you, Simone. Anything, Brent, that you need to add at this stage?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, I do then have Councillor Phillips wishes to speak.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. The Air Quality Action Plan and the air quality problem in Abbey Green, I think it's been there now since, and Keith probably will, Councillor Condical will probably correct me, but it's probably been there since about 2006, if not earlier. We've had this conversation before. We monitor the air quality in the air quality zones, right? We do not control the highways. We do not control the buses. There's a lot of things that we as a borough council do not control. It is always made to be seen that we as a borough council can improve air quality. We can where we are. We plant more trees, we do things, but the main problem is highways and the way Nuneaton is set up from a highway point of view. Councillor Condical will probably also know that we lost money, right, when the county council took money away from us to send it to Rugby and didn't complete the Rowan Ringway, which is why we get pinch points, etc. I live in Abbey. I see the traffic problems that we have there. They're highway problems a lot of the time. I'm working with county council in the view with sort of air quality monitoring around the school, Abbey School. Highways is not a borough council function. That's all I've got to say. We get hammered all the while about air quality and what we should be doing, when really it's the county council that should be doing a lot more. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Can I just ask that somebody checks that Councillor Shepherd is still on the call? Yes, she is. Sorry, I for whatever reason it had slipped off. Any other member wish to speak on this item? In that case, then I will move that we note the strategic performance report as presented. Comments be noted. Is that seconded? I take it Councillor Neil Phillips is seconding that. Neil, do you wish to come in? Can you unmute, Neil? Thank you,
And
Neil.
also, while seconding, Chair, regarding electric buses, this council has given a written support for the electric buses to come into place.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a show of hands, all those in favour then of that report? Councillor Shepherd, can I ask for your view? Councillor Shepherd, you're actually muted at the moment. Can you just...
Apologies, Chair. Unfortunately, my broadband went down halfway through, so I'll abstain.
Okay. In that case, then we're duly noted that there's one abstention and everyone else is agreeing with that report. That brings us then on to item 9, which is recommendations from overview and scrutiny. I understand there are none. Item 10 then, we do have reports that have been submitted actually today because of their urgency. In light of the fact that they have only been submitted today, I've actually asked that officers give us a more detailed report on them than we would normally have to aid our understanding in this scenario. Can I therefore pass to Simone to introduce item 10A, please? Thank you, Simone.
Okay, will do. Thank you, Chair. So this report is to present Cabinet with a draft policy and application form for the Local Authority Discretionary Grant Fund. This is a follow-on grant fund to the previous small business grants that the Council has been administering since the end of March. They were aimed at small businesses and those in the retail, leisure and hospitality sector. At the beginning of May, the government announced that that scheme would be expanded and that we would be able to use 5% of our previous allocation towards a discretionary fund to provide grants to small businesses. And this report is proposing a policy and an application form to be able to administer those grants. Our allocation for this grant fund is 952,000, which, if we were to award every business a grant of 10k, obviously we'd be able to support just under 100 businesses. Although it's a discretionary scheme, the government has prescribed some criteria that that every council needs to follow. So the government wants these grants to be aimed at small businesses with ongoing fixed property related costs, and that we should prioritise businesses that are in shared spaces, regular market traders, small charity properties or certain types of charitable properties, and bed and breakfast that pay council tax rather than business rates. We can choose to make grants to other types of businesses based on our local economic circumstances, but also that's going to be dependent on demand for the fund from those businesses that we're asked to prioritise. Businesses must be small, they must have under 50 employees, and they must also be able to demonstrate that they've had a significant loss of income because of COVID, because of the COVID restriction measures. There are 3 levels of grant that are set out in the guidance, 10, 25 or under 10 as well. So there's sort of 3 separate levels of grant, but it's up to local authorities to decide how they decide to pay each business. So we have been working with Coventry City Council and the other Warwickshire districts and boroughs to come up with a policy, and that's so that we've got some consistent policies across the area, so that we can apply them consistently to businesses. We have decided that as well as those businesses that the government have asked us to prioritise, there are other types of businesses that we would particularly want to target for this fund because they make a particular impact on our local economy. They are set out at 4.2 of the report, and they are independently owned manufacturing businesses who've suffered a drop of income due to COVID, companies within the precision engineering field, particularly supplying to the aerospace and automotive sectors, and that's again because they are particularly important to the borough's economy. And then those businesses who work within the events field, and those that supply equipment to venues that have been closed due to COVID, because they have been particularly affected. In order to maximise the number of businesses that the grant can support, our policy has suggested that the maximum grant is 10k per business. So we're proposing that we won't use the 25k level, that it'll be 10k or less than 10k. And we have set out how we will apply those amounts, so it will be dependent on how many employees and on the size of the business. If the fund is oversubscribed, which we expect it may well be, we will prioritise businesses based on loss of income and number of jobs that potentially will be at risk, as well as our view of the sustainability of the business. The report does say that we're aiming to launch the application process on Friday, the 29th of May. But we are still testing the software. We expect that we are going to need the weekend to continue to test the software, and that we will have the team working over the weekend to do that. So we're suggesting that we'll launch the application process on Monday, the 1st of June. Hopefully, as long as the testing of the software goes to plan. We will need to have an application form. The government have said that in their guidance, and we're suggesting that we'll have a 10-day application process, so quite a quick turnaround for businesses. And then we'll have to review all of those forms and make decisions on awards and who gets awarded a grant. And obviously that will be dependent on the volume of applications that we get. So the recommendations are at 2.1 and 2.2 of the report, and they are to approve the scheme and the application form, but also to give delegated authority to me in consultation with the leader, just to make any minor amendments that we may need to make to that policy before we launch on Monday. And I'll leave it there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I particularly thought, in light of the report coming today to members, it was important to have a fuller presentation. We do have a speaker on this. Councillor Brown, can I invite you to unmute?
Thank you, Chair. And like Councillor Kondaka before me, I would like to just add my respects to the 3 councillors that have passed away in recent weeks. We're in a rapidly changing situation here, and clearly the government is reacting to circumstances to help provide additional funding to keep businesses going during this pandemic. And I can understand why we might want to collaborate with other authorities to ensure there's a degree of consistency. And that's covered in paragraph 28 of the national guidance on this. But it's equally important that we respect the fact that the whole ethos of the scheme is to allow local councils to give discretion to their local business environment. And whilst I welcome the policy coming through so quickly and that we are intending to implement this quickly, I think it's very important that we do include that catch-all policy that allows us to apply our discretion to things that meet the government criteria that are different from other local authorities' needs, but which suit ours. So I would welcome the fact if we can include businesses that are involved in things like training, as well as the motor industry and the aerospace industry, as we've mentioned. Because whilst it's not necessary for us to reinvent the wheel in every circumstance and to take on board what other councils are doing, I think it is very important that our policy reflects our needs locally, notwithstanding the fact that other councils might apply the government criteria differently to their local needs. You would expect that if another local authority, Coventry, might have a slightly different mix of businesses, they would want to prioritise other types of business. And so I think it's very important that we in our local authority have the policy that allows us to exercise our discretion in a way that meets our needs. And I think it's quite right that that there has to be an application for this, and that businesses have to show that they have lost money due to the COVID-19 situation. And so, broadly speaking, I welcome this policy coming forward so quickly, and I want to see it implemented quickly and decisions made quickly, because we want to make sure that when this is all over, we have the businesses in our area that are still there to take up, so we can get economic activity back on the front foot again, because it's the jobs that give people the income that allow them to go out there and spend money and bring money into our local economy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I think the policy, as I'm reading it, actually does have local target sectors actually in place, in addition to those that have been replicating other districts within Warwickshire and indeed Coventry.
You'll appreciate that we've only received this today, and I've literally only had Office 365 for an hour and a half.
Councillor Brown, I think that is precisely why I asked our Executive Director Resources to introduce the report, so that you had a fuller report than we would normally have. I'm conscious this is very urgent, that we do everything we can to support the business community. I'm sure we would have a cross-party political consensus in wanting to do that as swiftly as we can, whilst having a fair application process in place. So I think that's what we're doing. And I'm really pleased, Councillor Brown, that your Office 365 has enabled you to join us today. It's a big learning curve, I think, for us all, isn't it? Any points of clarification of Councillor Brown? I didn't ask for that. No. OK. Thank you very much for your contribution, Councillor Brown. Any member wish to speak on this item? I'm not seeing any. In that case, can I formally move that we the recommendations as printed at section 2, 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3. Councillor Phillips, are you seconding that?
I will second that, yes. The more we can do for economic and recovery, the better.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a show of hands? All those in favour of supporting that, please show. That is unanimous. Can I thank everybody for that? So just for the minutes, so they're clear, that was proposed by myself, seconded by Councillor Phillips, and unanimous vote. We then, sorry, was somebody indicating? No. The next item is item 10B. And as with item 10A, I'm going to ask Simone if she would introduce it. But just before doing that, this is actually referring to business loans being administered by CWRT. Just to declare, as in my declarations of interest, I am a member of Coventry and Warwickshire Local Enterprise Business. I just think it's important I state that. I have no personal gain from the item at all. Simone, can I ask you to introduce the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So again, as part of a range of support measures for businesses affected by COVID-19, the government announced a coronavirus business loan interruption scheme, also known as CBILS, and it's to support small and medium-sized businesses to access loans and other finance of up to £5 million for a period of 6 years maximum. The scheme is delivered by a range of commercial lenders and is also backed by a government guarantee of up to 80%. And the government also covers the first 12 months of interest payments for those loans, and so any business that takes out one of those loans doesn't have to make any interest payments for the first 12 months. The issue, however, is that CBILS loans take up has been very slow for various reasons, with only around 50% of applications being approved by commercial lenders. So there's clearly a gap in the market there at a time when businesses are in quite urgent need of cash to sustain them through the current crisis. Accredited lenders do include major banks, but also there are some alternative lenders, which includes the Coventry and Warwickshire Reinvestment Trust, or CWRT, which are an arm of Coventry and Warwickshire LEP. CWRT is a not-for-profit accredited finance specialist and have been in the market for some time, and have existing loans to businesses within Coventry and Warwickshire. They've currently got 38 existing loans out to businesses in Nuneaton and Bedworth, worth almost 900k, and they've also been approached recently by further 6 businesses in the borough, with an average loan request of between 60 and 75k. The CWRT have a very, very low working capital fund, so are not able to support all of these business loan requests. Because of all of that, we've had some conversations with CWRT and other Warwickshire districts about the potential to cash flow CWRT so that they can make the loans to these businesses. Warwickshire County Council have already taken a decision to provide £1 million of funding to CWRT to be able to do this. And it's proposed that the Borough Council provide a further 250k on top of obviously the County Council's contribution to CWRT. That will be repayable over a 6-year term, and it would be covered by the 80% government guarantees. That's really, really critical. So if we were to lend up to 250k to CWRT, the maximum loss to the Borough Council would be 50k, and that would be if all businesses defaulted on all of their payments, that the maximum loss would be the 50k. If we were to do that, we think it would provide support to an additional 4, maybe 5 small businesses in the borough. So still a fairly small, sort of low level of support. However, we think that could support around 72 local jobs, which is clearly very much needed in the current time. We're suggesting that it would be for businesses in the borough or within a very defined radius of the borough, whose employee base is made up of at least 25% of borough residents. And that's just to make sure we capture those businesses that have the most impact again on our economy. In terms of funding, we would only need to provide funding for any losses, so that the 50k potentially over those 6 years. If there were any defaults that we needed to fund, we are looking to the Coventry and Warwickshire business rates pool and the growth that we've currently got retained within that pool to be able to fund those losses. And we've had discussions with the county, and we think that's a reasonable request to be able to withdraw some of those funds to be able to fund any losses that may come from this scheme. So the recommendations are at section 2 again, and it is for approval be given in principle to make that loan to CWRT of up to 250k. But again, delegated authority be given to myself in consultation with the leader just to finalise details of the loan agreement, because we haven't quite got there yet. So we're asking for approval in principle and then for officers and the leader to finalise the loan agreement. That's all, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simone. Are there anybody wanting to come in on this item? Is someone prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Phillips, you're prepared to move the recommendation?
Yes, Chair, I'll move the recommendation, and also I think that Councillor Damon Brown, when he talked about this, was more to do with 10B maybe than 10A. But I totally agree that any money that we're funding does need to come back into the local economy. The risk aspect is very, very low over a 6-year period. Yes, I will move the recommendation.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Do I have a seconder for that anyway?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Councillor Lloyd, thank you. And am I seeing everyone agreeing with that? If you can raise your hands. Yep, that is unanimously agreed. So that was moved by Councillor Phillips, seconded by Councillor Lloyd, and agreed by the meeting. I do have one other bit of any other business that I don't think is in any way controversial. I'd like to set up a cabinet working party in consultation with the leaders of the other groups to actually look at how we may, as a council, celebrate the contribution during what has been an horrendous pandemic in our community. I think the outstanding service of so many we should seek to try and recognise. So I'm going to move that we do that, and that the actual arrangements be done. I will talk to the other group leaders in regard to whom they may wish to sit on that. But I think it's something we should do. We've talked already this evening at length about the contribution of so many, many of whom have done different jobs. How many of us would have thought 6 months ago we would be meeting virtually? It's something completely outside many of our comfort zones. Councillor Phillips, I see you're wishing to speak.
Yes, I would second that suggestion, Chair. I think it's valid as we stand outside our houses and clap everybody who does so much, who have do and have given so much to our community. I think our council, if we can come to a cross-party agreement, I think to celebrate's the wrong word actually, to recognise the contribution that the public, our council workers have made throughout this unprecedented period would be, yes, it should be something we should do.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips, and I think you are totally correct in the word recognition as opposed to celebration. Yes, I think that is a well-made point. Any other member on this? Okay, I'm taking it that's agreed by other cabinet members that we try to do that, and I'll ask talk with other group leaders. I have a meeting tomorrow actually with them scheduled, so I'll work and obviously advise officers of our representation in this regard. I believe, Neil, you also have an item of any other business that you want to raise.
I do, Chair. It's just basically the fact that we've had well, in my department especially, we've had some really dedicated officers leave us lately through retirement, and I would like to give my thanks. And it's really unfortunate that I'm not going to be able to meet him before he retires at the end of May, and that's to give my thanks to Ian Powell. Since 2005, or when I became a councillor in 2006, etc., I have worked very, very closely with Ian, and he was what you would call not a special advisor, as some people might have in government at the moment, but he was a civil servant that gave you advice, told you how it was, and then you would have to make the decision as a local politician on which way you wanted to go. He's very, and I suppose other people might disagree with this, but he's been very analytical. He's been straight. He's taken a lot of stick over the years, but I can't fault him as not an advisor. As a civil servant, as director of his department, he has given untold good advice. There's other people on here that might think differently. Good advice to me as a cabinet. Every time I've been a cabinet member, it's been straight down the line. These are the facts. You've got these options. What do you want to do? So I'd like to wish Ian a really happy retirement whilst he's photographing and walking and not thinking about us.
I'm sure all of Cabinet would join those comments. I know we've had a number of more senior officers retiring recently, and Ian being one of our directors that is actually, I'm sure, looking forward to a new type of life, and we wish him all the very, very best. That then does conclude our meeting. Can I thank everybody for attending, and can I advise for our IT helpers that this